Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learn From Us Investor Academy podcast. I'm Seth. This is Paul. We're joined in studio by two very special guests. Lisa and Mary are here. What do you love about these two beautiful women?
That puts me on the spot.
Gotcha.
Well, Lisa did all of this stuff,
Stunning, right?
and Mary handles all of the real estate that makes all of this stuff possible,
I see.
right? So it all is a team effort.
I know you, both of them are your confidants. You turn toward them for lots of advice in this world. So
I do, actually. You're right.
we'll have to have the ladies on a podcast very soon.
That'd be exciting. Lisa, do you want to do that? Mary, are we up for that? No? No, they don't want to.
Come on, Mary.
We'll get them on.
Kevin O'Leary is doing a tour. And
Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank.
yeah, I don't watch the show that often. You love the show.
I do love the show.
Yeah. I don't watch the show that often. I'm too busy editing podcasts. But really, no.
What's this?
Yeah. But he does this. He is on tour with some sort of company where he's speaking. He does a city-by-city tour.
Yeah.
And I signed up for it, which just meant I got a barrage. I got a barrage of emails and calls and confirmations. I had a friend go. One was at Ohio State in Columbus, and apparently it was maybe 15 minutes of Kevin and 45 minutes of pitch. I don't know what they're pitching.
What are they pitching, Tim? Isn't it like business consulting or something like that? What's Kevin O'Leary pitching in his worldwide tour? Either way, it's something like some sort of like consulting or business advice or something like that.
Do you like him in general, Kevin O'Leary?
I like how blunt he is on the show. Sometimes he's a little mean, but I like the fact that he doesn't sugarcoat things. He's just like, listen, this is what you make. This is what your company's worth. This is what I'm going to offer you. If you say no, you're dead to me. And I know it sounds very harsh, but at the same token, I mean, maybe people should be more like that. Now, I like Robert Herjavec more.
You said something about Kevin O'Leary about Starbucks.
Yes.
What did he say?
So recently, there's two parts of this. So recently he came out and said, I refuse to buy a $3 Starbucks coffee because it costs 20 cents. And he thinks that's a silly purchase. So another financial advisor came out and said, well, no, that's not stupid. It's not the small things that matter when it comes to savings. So I disagree with both of them. So the thing I disagree with Kevin O'Leary about is, one, first he's being hypocritical because I think the guy like is a wine guy, like he's a wine connoisseur. And he probably has like $3,000 bottles of wine. And what's the cost on that
Wine's
stuff?
the ultimate markup.
I mean, seriously. And then the second it's gone. You have a bottle. You're left with a bottle, right? So what are you buying it for? But the other thing I don't like about it is he makes it seem like you shouldn't buy it because it's a big markup. Everything we have is a big markup. These clothes are a big markup. Everything but cars essentially a markup. And you shouldn't not buy something because it's a big markup. If it's worth it to you, then you buy it. To him, Starbucks isn't worth it. If he just said, hey, Starbucks isn't worth it to me, I'm not going to buy it, I'd have had no problem with that whatsoever. But the fact that he says it's such a high markup and that's why you shouldn't buy it, a little hypocritical. Like, I don't care for fancy food at all, right?
Yes, we go out to dinner. I come up from Columbus, we go out to dinner, and I always want to go to the nice steakhouse, and you want to go to Taco Bell.
The other nice steakhouse.
Sometimes we do both on the same night.
Yes, we do.
But that's probably some telling me that I should be spending my money more like you.
Well, no, necessarily, because I do spend my money stupidly in other areas. To me, though, I just sit there and say, it's food. It's going to be coming out of the other end here in 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, Lord, Paul.
Why spend all that money? To me, there's no value to it.
Do you hear that?
Is that true?
Listen, we've started off with a real bang talking about
bowel movements?
and Taco Bell and bowel movements.
No, I'm serious, though, because I look at it and say, there are things that you're going to like in your life. You're going to have what's the thing that you love?
I'm not even a car guy, and I do love my Tesla. I got the Tesla fanboy T-shirt on.
And guess what? You spent money on that car. You like sporting events too, right? You went to the Browns game
and paid way too much to go to the Browns game.
But they won. But you love your sports.
Yeah.
Now, if you came to me and said, Paul, I have this. I spent $3,000 last month. Oh, and by the way, money's tight. I'd be like,
yeah.
Now you're looking at a house soon, right? A new house.
Yeah, we're looking.
And we talked about a budget. We sat there and I said to you,
I was going to bring this up. Yeah.
You were going to bring it up.
Yeah, because you talk about the importance of a budget. I've heard the budget from the savings folks, the Dave Ramsey's and all these folks.
Yep.
And for Beth and I, my wife, the budget usually just led to arguments.
Why?
Because we ended up just going back in time and analyzing our purchases on what was a good one, what was a bad one, why did we need it, and so you asked me if I have a budget, and I said, not really. I mean,
so what do? You just sit there and say we have the money in the account, so we're fine. By the way, it's fine if you do that. I'm just wondering.
We definitely talk over a lot of purchases. There are some inevitables with kids that just come up, and like for us, it seems to throw the budget astray by couple $100.
You say the budget like you have one.
Well, no, unexpected stuff comes up, which you're saying a budget would obviously make that more expected.
Yep.
Also, I get thrown off sometimes because my photography business is somewhat roller coaster-ish.
Of course.
I know last year we ended up having 2 weddings get canceled on us, missing out on close to $15,000 to $20,000 in a month.
Yeah.
And so, so I always found it pretty more nerve-wracking than helpful. And so, but once you get to a spot, yeah, I guess maybe, once you get to a spot where it's not that the normal in and out of money is not that big of a deal, it's not as nerve-wracking. I'm definitely probably taking an ignorance is bliss type mentality of like I'd rather just not.
So what you just said there, if I understand correctly, was we don't have all the money we want, so we shouldn't budget. But when we have all the money we want, we should budget. Did I hear that accurately?
I don't know. When we're doing better with our business,
yeah.
Those minor fluctuations that would hurt us when we have less money, or would be more of a concern. They're not that much of a concern, so I'm just going to fill my mind. I'm not going to fill my mind with it. I'm not going to be upset that my kids' wrestling costumes. They're luchadores, by the way. Yeah, like my kids signed up for wrestling, and the coach says, "Oh, by the way, we're getting full outfits and full warm-ups. It's $170 per kid." My kids already want to quit, but so when you don't have as much money, that bill can really hit you. Like, well, should I just take them out? But when I do, it's like, well, just go. I know we'll be fine.
But if you have a budget, you'll know, oh, well, we already accounted for this, so it's not extra money. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the whole purpose of it. The other thing is, without fail, every single person I've ever taken from no budget to budget has spent less money and lived pretty much the same lifestyle, going, oh, I didn't even realize, we spend so frivolous. Like I pull my personal expenses in a QuickBooks so I can watch every month how much I spend in a separate account. And I'm always like shocked. I'm like, oh, wow, I spent that on this. Oh, wow, I spent that on that. Yeah. I just recently started doing this year, but it's exciting because now I think to myself when I'm buying something, do I really want to see that expense on my QuickBooks? And I have the ability to go afford these things. I'm just like, do I really want to see, Paul, you spent whatever. I mean, I'm not going to get into, but you know what I mean? You sit there and say, do I really need to spend this $300 here or this $400 here? But then if you do it enough times, you sit there and go, oh, you know what? I sacrificed a little bit. I'm okay. Right? So I know it's the 27th of the month. I'll be fine if I spend this because you look on a month-to-month basis. But when I didn't pay attention, I spent more. Because at the end of the month, I still had more than I started the month with. But then you start focusing on what the real goal is. And you might find that you actually spend less money when you go on a budget and live the same kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not fighting this. I know. I've had a few not fun sort of discussions in the past where it just brought up more resentment.
Well, what did I say to you as an example? A suggestion. I said, you and your wife should each have X amount of dollars a month.
Yeah.
That you don't question each other on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That way, there's no question. If you guys say hypothetically it's $1,000, if you want to go spend that on Tesla accessories, and she wants to go spend it on, what do women spend things on? Shoes that you think are absolutely ridiculous, then she does that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, all you care about is she's budgeted $1,000. That's it. That's all that matters, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think that's more of a realistic approach. I think initially we weren't taking a realistic approach.
Well, it was also years ago when you guys weren't as financially good as you are today.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about that, not only just the money in and out, but going back to the Starbucks analogy is your own personal value. You ask me all the time, what do I want and how much money do I need to make and what will money do for you? And then I just end up confused at the end of it.
Why?
Because I know we're told we're supposed to make a bunch of it, and we're supposed to try as hard as we can to make a bunch of it. And then at times you ask me why, and I was like, I don't know.
You still don't know the answer to that?
Well, inevitably, and here we go again, right? Inevitably, you want to be happy.
And theoretically, money gives you happiness.
I told
or
you
we're
about,
taught that.
There's some comedian, and I'm going to really foul this up, but, I don't know who it is, God. But he said, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a jet ski. Try to be unhappy. Try to be unhappy on a jet ski. It just can't be done. So you mention this all the time. Money can extrapolate your personality, whether it's good or bad.
She told me that. She was the one that first told me that.
Who?
Lisa.
Well, I love that thought process. Oh, yeah.
Money magnifies what you said, right, Lisa?
Yeah, money magnifies.
Yes, that's why I'm such a nice, generous guy now. I was always a nice, generous guy.
Yeah. So
awkward.
So talk about the value in your life.
We all value different things. I'm not here to judge anyone on their value system. I'm here to judge on hypocrisy in the value system. So the reason is Kevin O'Leary can't sit there, in my opinion, and say, oh, that's stupid because there's so much markup. And that was an inconsistent, as Mary and I were talking about this morning at breakfast, that's an inconsistent statement. You can't sit there and say Starbucks is too much margin and overvalued, but then he goes and buys a $3,000 bottle of wine or whatever the number is. I'm sure he's a wine guy. So like I've seen him like on the show and people pitch him wine. He goes, oh, this is swill. You know what I mean? He just like tosses it. He's like, this is awful. That's where I have an issue. But if you sit there and say, hey, this doesn't matter. Like to me, food does not matter at all. I could probably live off of $500 a month on food if I just ate Chipotle. No, it wouldn't be that cheap then. If I ate every meal Chipotle, it'd be like $800 a month.
I come over to your house for our slumber parties, and there's nothing in the fridge but like a 3-year-old bottle of Pepsi you're not drinking.
That's not true. I do have somebody who cooks because they cook me just regular meals, but she doesn't cook a ton. It's not like she cooks me 30 meals at a time.
Lisa, do you go over to the house? There's just pickles in the fridge. Pickles and Coke Zero.
And good Gatorade.
But keep going. Talk about.
So there's all priorities. So when you do your budget, you're going to decide, hey, this really matters to me a lot. I mean, you spend money on camera equipment, right? That's something you have to budget for, saying, I want to be able to buy that nice microphone or nice camera. But there might be something else that you just don't care. And I'm trying to think of an example. Clothes. You're not a clothes guy, right?
Well, I mean.
How much do you spend on clothes? How often do you buy clothes?
I guess not that often to some folks.
That's the point. Like you're not going, I mean, you're wearing a Tesla t-shirt today. How much did that thing cost?
My mom bought it for me.
Seriously, how much would that t-shirt cost? 20 bucks? $30? That's exactly it. I mean, you're not going to go broke buying a $20 or $30 t-shirt once every week. You know what I mean? But there are other people. I like clothes a lot. I spend money on clothes. But in my defense, I buy. Why are you laughing? I buy on sale clothes because I'm looking at going Nordstrom Rack off 5th. They've got plenty of awesome clothes that you can buy super cheap. Except for the shirts. I get shirts like, custom made because I like them fitting well. But other than that, everything's on sale because I'm like, I'm not going to go spend $300 on a pair of shoes. I'd rather get it on sale for $70. So I make that concession because I'd rather go spend money on watches are a big thing for me, right?
I'm sure you've read the book, The Millionaire Next Door.
I read it in high school. That was one of the first books I ever read about money.
Yeah. I liked it. What did you think of it?
I liked it a lot back then, but I think it's a little extreme. It basically, to me, made it seem like you had to be like this scroungy super saver, or else you're not gonna make it in life. And I'm like, well, there's a healthy balance to everything. It's a great book, though. It's a great way of I remember the first time I read, they did this survey for all these rich guys, and they brought caviar and everything, and the guys were like, where are the turkey sandwiches? And I remember back then thinking to myself, these guys are all millionaires. They wanted turkey sandwiches, and then I look at my eating habits now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. Yeah. That's what really stuck out at me. And the other thing was how much you pay for your house. Like he said, what he called prodigious accumulators of wealth spend less than 1.5 times their annual income on a home. And I'm like, that's a little tight. Like if you're going to live in your house for a long time and your income's going to increase, buy as much home as you can reasonably afford and don't make a change every 2 or 3. Like, if you only spend 1.5 times and your income doubles, and you go move again? No, just maybe stretch, not saying stretch it, but do your budget, realize what you can afford. We talk about your house. Like, hey, Paul, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, it's basically one extra wedding a year. Go figure this out. And you can afford it. And guess what? 3 or 4 years from now, you might be like, what your first house you bought for how much?
My first job out of graduate school with a PhD, I started at $56,000 in 2009. Which was a lot.
But your wife was also working.
Yeah. She was a teacher. We dug up some of her old W-2s. It was in the high 20-something thousands for the year. I'm fairly sad now that I think about it. But so our first house we bought at 198.
And you were like scared, weren't you?
Scared. It was a mansion compared to our parents' houses. It was our mansion, but yeah, it was scared. And judging by your calculator, it might have been a little out of.
Yeah, you guys make like 80 combined, and you worried about it. And then how soon after you're kind of like, oh, this is nothing.
Yeah, it was silly. We started making extra payments, which I know you're against.
I am against that.
We refinanced down to a 15, which I know you're against.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's silly now. So I've been telling folks this new house we're looking at, it's actually in line with our income. It's less of a reach than our first house.
Yep.
Which is funny to think about because it's obviously bigger. We have kids
But
now.
what did I say about it? I said it's more money, but I said, yeah, but this is a house you're probably going to be in you could be in for the rest of your life.
You know, every time you look at me and say, what did I say? My mind just completely flatlines. Like, beep. And I'm just like, what do you, I don't know.
I say it for the rapport. The back and forth.
Well, just answer your own question because I'm just like, I can hardly formulate my own sentences.
I said to you.
I trail on my own sentences.
Yes, but I said to you, when you move next, this looks like the kind of house that you could be in for 20 or 30 years until you downsize again. You know what I mean? I look at that saying, it's $1,200, $1,300 a month more, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But do one wedding, do 2 weddings, you got that paid for. And all of a sudden, you're going to get, I guarantee we do a budget, we'll find that extra money in there.
Yeah.
Take your kids out of those private schools.
I brought that up to Beth.
What'd she say?
I think the private schools, we're paying like $8,000 for 2 kids to go to Catholic school. And
Post-tax.
Yeah. So I'm not in love with that. But
by the way, Millionaire Next Door, they talk about public schools education for kids. I never agreed with it back then. And still this day, I still think to myself, like, it's all about the parents. So that's why I sit there and suggested that, especially with Beth being a school teacher. You know, if anybody can guide the kids the right way in terms of education, it would be her.
Well, and you're probably one of these that have since told me this. You know, when I was going to high school, we were told that sort of matters where you go. And then when we go to college, well, you can't go to that college, God forbid, right? You got to go to this college. And then graduate school, you got to go to this one. And then I remember at every level, I was meeting people that I met from my previous life.
Yeah.
I was seeing people that I met. And they went to that school I would have never gone to, and we ended up in the same place. It just kept happening and happening and happening. So I was like, well, you know, but why is this episode about me, Paul? No one gives a shit about me.
Everybody cares about you. You're the guy with the beard.
Yeah, so.
But it's very relevant. That's the reason why we talk about it, because you're going through the situation now and the budget and the small things that the other guy says don't matter. I do believe that the other guy's wrong. The small things do matter. If you start looking at the things you spend, look at dinners. I know you like food. I don't know how much you guys eat out a lot. I eat out at all, but.
Well, I also cook, so.
Well, you do cook.
Yeah.
So maybe if you eat out, how often do you guys eat out?
Probably once a week.
Okay. I don't know. All I'm saying is every single time I've seen a budget, I'm like, that can be cut. That can always be, there's always room to cut something. And at the same point, you got to decide how important is your house to you.
Yeah.
Your house.
Sacrifices have to be made somewhere.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling Beth. Yeah, it's like, well, we could have this house if the kids, you know, go
to a good school system, whatever that means. Good school system.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, again, and by the way, going back to the high school conversation, I do think private school matters, but I don't think it matters to the people that can really afford it. That's the ironic part. Like, I don't think it matters to the people who already have money, because I think there's already that home mentality of success and go do this and go do that. And I think it helps a lot of the kids who are the in-between kids, not necessarily financially, but even education-wise. You need a little more hand-holding. And that's why I look at it and go, if your kids need hand-holding and they got their mom who is a school teacher, like, she'll be able to hold their hand. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like it's a stretch that way. And I look at that going, again, I'm not trying to sit there and say sacrifice this to get this. What I'm sitting there saying is, what's the real value of it? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not as into it as everybody else as I used to be. Now, if I had kids today, would I still send them to private school? Yeah, I would. But would I send it to the private school everybody thinks I would send them to? Probably not. I wouldn't send them to, you know, Old Trail or something like that.
I think this new house purchase would probably slow down any soon real estate purchases I might get into.
Well, we have to do a budget and see that. I don't know.
Yeah.
See how it all comes full circle here, Seth?
Wow.
You got to do a budget.
See how you did that.
You know how easy that is to do a budget too? What's your fear about doing a budget?
Well, you know, before, I actually have QuickBooks. So before, it was just like taking the extra time to go in on a month-to-month basis.
You know, it automatically downloads for you. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
Like, I literally go in my QuickBooks and I go update, and it downloads all my transactions since my last update, and I just add them to the category, and it's done.
I'm not opposed to it at all. You might want to call my wife and She wants it too. So
Does she?
Yeah, always has.
Women tend to be more financially responsible than men.
She is, which just means I can't have as much fun with all the money.
You might be able to have just as much fun.
Yeah.
That's my point of all of it. And then you can worry about the Starbucks and the things like that, saying, hey, I want to do the Starbucks because like you're very big on Starbucks, right?
My wife is too.
You once spent 3 hours going to Starbucks once. Remember that?
I just described this story.
Ignored me there.
No, I was telling the friend this Starbucks story. If you haven't noticed in the podcast, guys, we normally start with Paul indicating how late we are. And one beautiful November morning, Tesla told me that the nearest Starbucks was on the turnpike. But you can't turn around on the turnpike. So I had to go about 15 miles in this direction and turn around and then come back to a closed exit. Then go the other direction and turn around. So yeah, that was a long, wonderful. But I tell you what, moral of the story is I called my wife and I had a photography conference I needed to write a delivery for, and we had an hour and a half to write that delivery and get it done, and it was smashing success. So had I not gone on that travel, I might have not ever got that done. So.
Oh, well, thank God you were on that long excursion.
So after this podcast, I'm going to go to Starbucks and we'll formulate a budget in the car.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, So.
I'm a big believer in pick what matters to you, figure out the best way to buy those things, figure out what small expenses you don't really need that you're just like sitting there going, okay. You know, I remember a friend of mine 13 years ago, he and his wife were $30,000 in credit card debt, had no savings whatsoever. I did not help them. I didn't know this situation. A year later, they told me that they went from $25,000, $30,000 in credit card debt to zero credit card debt and a bank account with $20,000 in it. How? They just decided that anytime they're going to make a purchase over $100, they would wait 48 hours. And he goes, you know what the weird part was? After 48 hours, we didn't want that thing anymore. So we went from buying tons of stuff for $100 or more to nothing, and we just paid our credit card debt down and able to save no difference in income. They went from there. And by the way, I exaggerate when I say a year. Maybe it was 2 years. The bottom line was They just went and said, if it's over this amount of money, I'm not going to buy it unless we wait 48 hours. If I still want it 48 hours later, we have a discussion about it. And that was the rule. And it worked fabulously for them. And he was trying to get into real estate at the time, by the way. And now he had the money for the real estate. And that's the whole thing. He just decided we'd rather not have credit card debt and have no money in our bank account. Let's figure this out. It's not working the way we're doing it. Let's just try this very simply. And it worked.
I've known some people with some terrible credit card debt numbers.
Yeah.
I sent you that article about people are refinancing their house, getting cash out to pay off that stuff.
Yep. It happens.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Is it healthy?
If you're going to change the habit, it's healthy. If you're not going to change the habit, it's not healthy. The problem with just writing a check for it from your house equity is, would you really change in your life? You took an asset that you paid down debt on, you did well with, and you just took money and paid something else off. You haven't changed how you view money and how you spend money, right? Mm-hmm. That's what matters. If you're not able to do it, don't refinance. I mean, you have a 15-year mortgage, which I think is great in the sense of, look at this 15-year mortgage. It actually probably makes it easier for you to buy this more expensive house because your mortgage payment was so high that now it's not that big of a jump to go to a more expensive home.
Well, that's true. I mean, prior to meeting you, I've said this multiple times on the podcast. Prior to meeting you, I think one of my life goals was just to pay off my house, maybe pay for my kids, and then maybe retire. You know
what my life goal is? To always have a mortgage.
You love debt.
It's not that I love debt in the
Smart
negative way.
debt.
It's just they're going to charge me 4%. I can go beat 4%. So why should I let the money not be growing at a better rate of return elsewhere? That's the way I look at it. Now, at some point in the future, I'm sure it won't matter at all. I mean, it still does. I mean, but at the same point, it's just, I look at it and going, why have this asset paid off? I don't see the value in it at all. I can go take that money and go invest it elsewhere, and the cash flow from that extra investment would probably pay the entire mortgage anyhow. Right? And that's my theory. It's not a theory.
You've always said there's multiple ways to skin a cat, which I wanted to look that up, where that saying came from.
It came from my friend Michael, who's the only investing guy. He always said there's multiple ways to skin a cat, and I never believed him until last few years. And now it's awesome. I look at it and go, yeah, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's no set way to do things. It's just about...
Well, the folks who want to pay off their house are not necessarily wrong. They might be missing out on what they can do with that money, and it might very well make them feel better, which is in the end all be all.
And I've always said that. I've always said, if it makes you sleep better at night, go do it. But don't cry later when you have a $250,000, $300,000 house paid off.
Now, I thought about this because
the
later might not come for 35 years.
Yeah.
So how do you, when you have so many conversations with people...
You can do numbers. We can do numbers on an Excel sheet and show them the projections.
No, I guess I'm digressing. Is like
Go ahead.
The idea of learning from you and getting into real estate, which I'm trying to do desperately. That I didn't have that in my mindset 2 years ago. Is like the people who are hesitant. They're not going to find out they missed out until it's too late, right?
Yeah, that's what usually happens. Lisa, what do you always say when we talked about savings a few years ago? You said you wish they taught you this in high school, right? Yeah, I would tell her like, how much $50 or $100 does, and that's why I teach at Walsh every other week, and I show them that, and they're like, "Wow, that's amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, but it is too late." But at the same token, it's not too late because this information is out there, especially nowadays with podcasts and internet. You can go look up these things and say, "How much will I have in retirement?" And there'll be a calculator there that tells you. It's not complicated. It's just a matter of, are you going to be lazy and are you not going to be lazy? That's it. Now, I was fortunate enough to care about this stuff. And I remember one time, because I was a nerd in high school, I was a senior, and somebody asked me for like $1. And I said no. They said, why? I said, because you're going to be taking $200 out of my retirement if I give you the $1 today or something like that. And they're just like, really? It was my way of saying no to them because obviously they're going to pay me back, but that was the way I viewed it. I was just like, you're going to be taking, and did I really mean that? I don't know if I really meant it or not, but the guy, of course, made fun of me. But at the same token, I think it was you actually. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't you. But the whole point is that's the way I viewed it. It's money out of retirement because we were 17 at the time, and I had, when I thought I was going to retire at 65 or something like that, that's 48 years to go.
Yeah.
It's a long time, and money can accumulate very well over 48 years.
Of course.
So.
Well, thank you for this wonderful discussion today, Paul.
Thank you, Seth.
As always, I love talking to you, as many other people have said along all these years. Folks, if you love what you hear, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. We are on all of the podcast channels. Tim has been working his butt off to get us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. And
you find us by typing in
Google Play.
Learn from us, Investor Academy. Don't look up my name.
But you're so famous and handsome.
Aren't I though? Don't look up my name on Google either. Bad news.
Guys, thanks so much. We'll be working on my budget.
Yes. In the next hour.
Yes. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, sir.
See you.